welcome back, and I hope you all are doing good. Now let's recap what we did in last period. Last time we discussed about various biogeochemical cycles. Basically, what do you understand by biogeochemical cycles and its types? So let's just recap what we did last time. Two types of biogeochemical cycles we have, that is gaseous cycle and sedimentary cycle. Then we discussed in detail what is the difference between gaseous and sedimentary cycle. Though they are not exactly different, there are certain things which can be included in both gaseous cycle as well as sedimentary cycle also. But then we started with carbon cycle. In detail we discussed everything regarding carbon cycle, and now this period we are going to start with oxygen cycle and nitrogen cycle, and then it will be the end of the lesson. So oxygen cycle. Oxygen is said to be one of the most important element on the earth. It is gaseous state. 21% of the earth's atmosphere contains oxygen gas. Now, oxygen gas is very important for living organisms, as we all know that we all utilize oxygen for generating energy and give out carbon dioxide. So oxygen we had studied in carbon cycle also, like during photosynthesis plant produce oxygen by taking in carbon dioxide, and living organisms take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. So this oxygen is very important in the biogeochemical cycle, or for entire biosphere oxygen plays a very important role, especially in living organisms. Apart from living organisms, oxygen forms part of various non-living things or abiotic factors also. It is highly reactive element. It is found in organic as well as inorganic compounds. Like oxygen is found in carbon dioxide, CO2, carbon monoxide, CO, magnesium oxide, rust, that is ferrous oxide, calcium oxide. These all things contain oxygen in them. Same time, organic compounds like carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, these also contain oxygen in them. This oxygen plays important role in both abiotic as well as biotic factors. Oxygen is produced by plant by photosynthesis, and it is used up in various processes like combustion, burning requires oxygen. In 5th or 6th standard you might have seen that experiment of burning of candle, and when you put upside down glass on it, the candle extinguishes due to absence of air or due to absence of oxygen. So oxygen is required for respiration, it is also required for combustion, and it is also required for rusting or corrosion of metals. So for all these purposes oxygen is used, and by photosynthesis it is produced. So that was all about oxygen. There is one more thing, do you know, in that there are two types of microorganisms. Those which require oxygen for their respiration or for generating energy, they are called as aerobic microorganisms, and those which do not require oxygen are called as anaerobic microorganisms or anaerobes. So this was all about oxygen cycle. Basically oxygen cycle is very complex, and you in your textbook there is not much given about oxygen cycle except for the diagram. So if you see figure 7.7, you will see how oxygen circulates in the biogeochemical cycle. Coming to the last part, that is nitrogen cycle. Now nitrogen is one of the highest element which is present in the largest quantity in the atmosphere. Around 78% nitrogen is present in the atmosphere. Now before starting to the nitrogen cycle, let's discuss 2-3 questions. What is meant by nitrogen fixation? Nitrogen fixation is done in two ways. In 8th standard you might have studied in microorganism. Nitrogen fixation can be done in biotic way or in abiotic way. Biotic way meaning there are certain microorganisms which have ability to convert atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites and fix it into the soil. The microbes absorb the nitrogen from the air and convert it into different compounds of nitrogen, which are utilized by plants. Such bacteria or such microbes are called as nitrogen fixing bacteria. Example is rhizobium, which is present in the root nodules of leguminous plants. So they fix the nitrogen, or they convert the atmospheric nitrogen into compounds of nitrogen and they bring it into the soil. This is called as biotic method of fixing nitrogen. Abiotically, nitrogen is fixed during lightning. During lightning, nitrogen in the air reacts with water droplets and oxygen. During rainy season, when there is lightning, the nitrogen react with water and oxygen and come down along with the rain. That is utilized by the plants. Now, plants require nitrogen in larger quantities for production of different types of proteins. When we are consuming plant products, we consume protein. The main part of protein is nitrogen or ammonia. So nitrogen or ammonia, they are made up of nitrogen itself. So basically there are two types of microbes when we consider the biotic factors or biotic method of fixation of nitrogen. Nitrifying bacteria and denitrifying bacteria, or nitrogen fixing bacteria and denitrifying bacteria. So just go through figure 7.8 in your textbook, the nitrogen cycle. You can see there are cloud and there is a lightning. So during cloud and lightning, the atmospheric nitrogen is converted into NH3, either by lightning or by help of microorganisms present in the soil, by help of nitrogen fixing bacteria, which convert nitrogen into NH3, or lightning. Lightning can also convert nitrogen into NH3. This NH3 is again taken up by certain different types of microbes, and those microbes convert it into NO3, nitrogen oxide. This nitrogen oxide is taken up by the plants, and some nitrogen oxide goes again to certain bodies of certain other microorganisms. These microorganisms convert NO3 back to N2 and it goes back into the atmosphere. Then in between you can see cow which is feeding, and it is also eliminating NH4, that is ammonia. So living organisms, during excretion of urine, they release ammonia or they release urea. This all, that is ammonia, urea, uric acid, which are excretory products of animals, these products are converted back into NO2, NO2 back again into NO3, and again this NO3 can either be utilized by plant for fertilizer or by denitrifying bacteria, they can again go back into the atmosphere. Just try to study the diagram, you will understand the entire nitrogen cycle. Now in nitrogen cycle there are certain important points given, 4 points are given. First is nitrogen fixation. So what do you understand by nitrogen fixation? The definition is given: conversion of nitrogen into nitrates and nitrites through atmospheric, industrial or biological process. Now here one more term is included, industrial. Now in industries also nitrogen is fixed to form different compounds of nitrogen like nitrates, and these are used as chemical fertilizers for the plant. Urea is commonly used fertilizer, which is the source of nitrogen for the plants. Second point, ammonification, release of ammonia through decomposition of dead bodies and excretory waste of organisms. Ammonification means urea or uric acid is converted into ammonia by living organisms, by microorganisms from the excretory products of living organisms or from the dead decomposing organisms. Third point is nitrification, conversion of ammonia into nitrate and then into nitrite and then into nitrate. It is called as nitrification. And last point is denitrification, conversion of nitrogen compounds like NO3 back into nitrogen gas, which is released back into the atmosphere. That is called as denitrification. Now this was all about all the biogeochemical cycle. In biogeochemical cycles we had studied 3 cycles. First was carbon cycle, second was oxygen cycle, and third was nitrogen cycle. So that's all about the lesson. I hope it is clear to you. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask me on WhatsApp on my personal number. Thank you.